In the mountains of the United States, there is a town that officially does not exist. It doesn't appear on Google Maps. No government records mention it. But someone claims they accidentally found it, and almost none of them return the same. Tonight, you'll hear the mystery that many believe was buried forever. On a cold October evening in 2009, Ethan Carter, a freelance travel photographer, was driving through a remote mountain highway in the western United States. He had spent the entire week photographing forgotten roads, abandoned cabins, and isolated landscapes. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, his GPS suddenly lost signal. He wasn't worried. Roads like these often had poor reception. A few minutes later, he noticed something strange. A rusted road sign appeared on the side of the highway. It wasn't on his map. It simply read, Ash Hollow, 7 miles. Curious, Ethan searched the name on his phone. Nothing. No results. No map. No history. It was as if the town had never existed. Most people would have continued driving. But Ethan had built his career exploring places that other people ignored. He turned onto the narrow road. The forest became darker with every mile. The air felt unusually cold. Birds stopped singing. Even the sound of the engine seemed strangely quiet. After several minutes, he reached an old wooden bridge. On the bridge stood another sign. This one looked newer. It carried only 6 words. Turn back before sunset. Last warning. Ethan laughed. He assumed someone had created it to scare tourists. He took a photograph, then continued driving. He had no idea that crossing that bridge would become the biggest mistake of his life.
Ethan switched on the flashlight attached to his camera. The weak beam cut through the darkness, revealing the same diner. But something had changed. The chairs were no longer neatly arranged. The coffee cups were gone. The room looked as though it had been abandoned for decades. Dust covered every surface. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. Confused, Ethan looked back toward the table where he had been standing only seconds earlier. There was a single black and white photograph lying there. He was certain it hadn't been there before. He picked it up carefully. The picture showed the entire town gathered in front of the diner. Children smiled. Families stood together. An American flag waved above the entrance. Everything looked perfectly normal. Until Ethan noticed the date, October 14th, 1958. Then his heart stopped. Standing in the back row, wearing the same jacket, holding the same camera, was Ethan himself. His hands began to shake. That's impossible, he whispered. He turned the photograph over. Written in faded ink were 7 chilling words. You were always meant to return. A cold breeze swept through the diner. The photograph slipped from his fingers. From outside, he heard dozens of footsteps. Slow, heavy, getting closer. When Ethan looked through the dusty window, the empty street was no longer empty. People were standing silently outside. Every single one of them was staring directly at the diner, and none of them blinked. Ethan stood frozen behind the dusty window of the old diner. Outside, dozens of people were gathered in the street, men in old-fashioned suits, women wearing clothes from another era, children standing perfectly still. But the strangest thing was not what they were wearing. It was their faces. They all looked exactly like the people from the photograph. The same people who appeared in a picture taken almost 70 years ago. Ethan slowly stepped away from the window. His mind was searching for a logical explanation. Maybe this was a historical village. Maybe someone was recreating the past. Maybe there was a simple answer. But then he noticed something impossible. A young woman standing outside was holding a newspaper. The headline was clearly visible. The date was the same, October 14th, 1958. Ethan walked toward the door. Before he could open it, the elderly man from earlier appeared behind him. You need to leave before midnight, the man whispered. Ethan turned around. Who are you people? The old man looked toward the street. We are the ones who stayed. Stayed where? The man didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the mountains. Everyone who finds this town is given a choice. Ethan felt a chill. What choice? The old man looked directly into his eyes. To leave ... He paused. Or to become part of the town. Suddenly, Every person outside turned their heads toward Ethan at the same time. A loud bell rang from the church tower. Midnight was approaching, and Ethan realized something terrifying. Ethan knew he had only one option. He needed answers. The old man slowly walked away from the diner and motioned for Ethan to follow him. They moved through the empty streets of the town. The strange residents watched silently from their windows. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. It felt like the entire town was waiting for something to happen. Finally, they reached an old building at the edge of town. The building looked abandoned from the outside, but inside, there was a hidden staircase leading underground. As Ethan walked down, he noticed hundreds of old photographs covering the walls. Every photograph showed people arriving at the town, different years, different faces, different vehicles, but every person had the same confused expression. Ethan stopped at one picture. It showed a man standing beside a truck. The date was 1976. Another picture showed a woman from 1989. Another showed a couple from 2004. All of them had disappeared from the outside world. "What is this place?" Ethan asked. The old man finally answered. "This town does not appear on maps because it was never meant to be found." He explained that decades ago, a group of people discovered a strange valley hidden between the mountains. They built a town there, but after a mysterious event, time inside the valley stopped moving normally. People could enter, but leaving was almost impossible. Ethan looked at the photographs again. Then he saw something that made him completely silent. A new photograph was hanging on the wall. It was taken only minutes ago. It showed Ethan standing in the town. The old man looked at him and whispered, "The town already knew you were coming." Ethan stared at the photograph in disbelief. His hands were shaking. The image showed him standing in the middle of the town square. But the most terrifying part was the date written underneath. It was tomorrow's date. He looked at the old man. "How is this possible?" The old man remained silent for several seconds. Then he finally said, "Because this town doesn't just hide places, it hides moments." Ethan wanted to leave immediately. He didn't care about the mystery anymore. He only wanted to return home. The old man led him through a narrow underground tunnel beneath the town. The walls were covered with names, hundreds of names. People who had entered Ash Hollow over many years. Some names were crossed out. Others were still waiting. At the end of the tunnel was an old wooden door. A weak light came through the cracks. "Open this door," the old man said. "You will return to your world." Ethan reached for the handle, but before he opened it, he noticed something carved into the wood. His own name. Below it were 3 words, "Not yet finished." Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind him. The people of the town were coming through the tunnel. Slowly, silently. The old man looked afraid for the first time. "You need to go now." Ethan pulled the door open. A powerful wind rushed through the tunnel. For a moment, he saw the final secret of Ash Hollow. Ethan stepped through the wooden door. For a few seconds, everything went silent. The cold air disappeared. The strange voices faded away. And suddenly, he was standing beside his truck on the same mountain highway where his journey had started. The sun was rising. The forest looked normal again. There was no town, no bridge, no strange road sign, nothing. Ethan looked around in confusion. Had everything been a dream? A nightmare caused by exhaustion? He quickly got inside his truck and started the engine. He didn't look back, not even once. For the next several hours, he drove without stopping. When he finally reached a nearby town, he went straight to a hotel. He needed proof, something that could explain what happened. He opened his camera. Thousands of photos were saved. The highway, the forest, the diner, the people, the hidden room. Everything was there. But one photo made him stop breathing. It was the final picture taken inside Ash Hollow. A picture of the town from a distance. And standing beside the road was Ethan, watching himself leave. Years later, Ethan published his story. Most people called it impossible. Some believed he had discovered a forgotten place hidden in the mountains. Others believed Ash Hollow was never a physical town at all, but a mystery that only appears to certain people. Even today, some travelers claim they have seen a missing road sign deep in the mountains. A sign that says, Ash Hollow, 7 miles, and below it, a warning, turn back before sunset, because some mysteries are not meant to be solved, some places are not meant to be found, and some doors are not meant to be opened.